I will turn it here. Thank you very much, Zoom. And I will turn it on over to, I believe, David or whomever else would like to take the mic. Maybe Anne, someone?
Oh. Looks like Anne got to the mic first.
Go for it, David.
All righty. Glad to join you this evening. And we simply wanted to go through a few documents and then answer any questions that you had. So the documents were loaded out on Box for you. And we've got, just going to spend a few minutes quickly to start with. Give me a second and I'll start sharing the document. Okay. All right. So each, this is the cover page here. What we have found out early on several years ago is that providing a little bit of structure would help you focus on the comments and provide better documentation. So that's why we provide this. One of the most important things for us, if you will, is getting your team ID on this document. We'd also encourage you to put your team ID in the file name. That way it just helps us sort out which documents are where, or so we can give teams proper credit. The system overview, as it mentions here, briefly describe it. And as we go through each of the sections, we kind of give you a hint here of what the purpose is for each of these sections and why we're including it. As it says, one cannot secure a system when its purpose and scope are unknown. So that is, the hint to you is the overall purpose. And here, we give you an additional hint as well. The audience for this section is senior leadership. So please write accordingly. What we'd like, this document as well as the CSuite video, their purpose is to get you to think about the rest of the process that goes into cybersecurity, all of the written documentations, presentation to management and the decision makers so that they can take the appropriate action. So it's to broaden the competition beyond the strict technical piece, but also include some of these soft skills and the professional skills. That's the focus here. And that's why we talk about senior leadership. We don't necessarily care whether you list out all of the hosts and their names, the IP addresses. That doesn't go into the overview. Quite frankly, that would be over the head of some senior leaders. So just give the overall purpose. This is your ICS system. What's the theme for the year? And then quickly we have the list of the assets. And that's another reason why you don't need to include that in the overview. Network diagram is perhaps one of the most varied sections that we will see. And as we've mentioned here, we want you to focus on the content. So a hand-drawn diagram actually will score quite well, but there are many online programs, Draw.io, and others where you could go to draw something up if you'd like with an electronic package. That's an option for you. Now the vulnerabilities, we will see those. System hardening. As you're going through your system, we want you to now tell us what you did to provide confidence that you can actually do what you're that you've actually locked down the system. This will help us understand the steps that you've taken, provide confidence that you've actually identified everything that was seeded into your system. And 1,250 words. This means this again is a summary. You're writing it for someone else to read it. This isn't the 50 or 100-page report that you're going to get out of a standard vulnerability tool. So please don't put that in your system hardening section. Give us a summary of what you found. That is the high level. Oh, there we go. Lisa put a note in there, diagrams.net, another wonderful online tool that people can use. We also, to help with this, there's a rubric, and that document is starting to download so I could share. That's going to take me a moment to find it again. And would you happen to have that on your screen?
Yep, I can share. Hold on just a sec.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Anne has shown the rubric here. This is to tell you exactly what we're looking for, is that we've broken it out into different categories. Your system overview, again, a 3%, not a lot, but it's to get you to focus on that. Asset inventory, network diagram is worth a lot of points. And there, if we scroll all the way to the right, you can see that we expect your diagram to include all the assets if you're going to get full points here, that it makes logical sense, it's technically sound, that if you do have enclaves within your system, that they're shown as enclaves, that you just don't have a big fuzzy cloud where everything is sitting, and that you're using the appropriate symbols that the profession uses. So those in this fourth column here, the exemplary, that's what we expect the superior teams to be doing. If you're in contention for the overall winner, then you're going to have to do well on both the security documentation as well as the CSuite panel, because we have seen the points in these professional documentation and communication efforts differentiate between the top teams. And for all teams, this is an exercise to help you think about, oh, there's more than just the technical piece, the configuring the firewall. We have to explain to our manager how we configured the firewall, so that way our manager will trust that we've done our job well. So yeah, and in the chat, the documents are all in Box, that you should have access to those. So that is the super quick summary for the security documentation. I think Animesh is going to talk about the CSuite panel, and then we'll give a brief overview there. And then after that, we'll take questions and answers.
Yes, let me just get it up real quick because it has eluded me as to which tab it's on right now. Sorry about that. It's somewhere. One of the ones that I have up apparently right now. I'll go ahead and pull it up again then real quick. Sorry about that. Hopefully everyone is having a good day, and yeah, very much appreciate everyone being available this late in the day. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Go ahead and let me know if and when.
I can see the overview, rules, and scoring.
Okay, perfect. Cool. I'm just trying to maximize this because it's not wanting to. It's where the Zoom stuff is directly there. We go. It's just like it's sitting right on that top bit. Okay, so you guys can see this.
Actually, it was larger the first time.
Okay, how about that?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
that works for me.
perfect. Let's go ahead and get on down to that spot. Okay, apparently that's not going to do it for you right now. We have to scroll through apparently.
And again, this document is on Box, so you'll be able to download it as a team and read through it all.
Okay, so the C-suite panel brief is sort of a part of the competition where, in addition to all the technical components that you're going to have, running an organization, a business also includes a business component to it. And namely, with this particular task, it is your job as the engineer, researcher, technician to brief your higher up, so your CEOs, CFOs, also known as the C-suite, on kind of what you're doing. This is going to be a relatively short presentation. Your goal is basically take everything that you've done and condense it into I believe it's 5 to 7 minutes. Yeah, so this is the task right here, if you can see this. You're going to submit a 5 to 7 minute presentation to your C-suite to discuss the strategy and integration, strategy for integration for future security. So your requirements for this, I'm gonna basically just read off this just so I make sure that I say it clearly and don't misspeak at all, but you guys will also have this document and can read it again. The first thing, your video must start with your registration ID. We have to know who you are. You can include the first names of your team members, but we don't want any university identifiers. We don't want the sense that there is any bias towards a university or anything like that. It is a requirement that at least 2 members of your team are presented in the recorded video, and then the contributions of the other team members should be acknowledged. This does not mean that 2 of you need to be in the same room together. We're all techie folks in this call, or at least generally probably know how to use some sort of video editor. If you're not familiar, ask your teammates, find someone who is familiar with using something like that. You could use iMovie, you could record straight to YouTube, you could use any of the other platforms that you have for recording things. The gist of what you're going to do is provide the plan for initial risk assessment of your blind implementation. So things that the CEO are going to be concerned about are going to be those specific risks that you want to highlight. I'll have another document here in a second that'll kind of touch on what those are. But what you want to focus on is 3 to 5 immediate actions. What can you tell your CEO right then and there? These are the things we're doing right now that are going to help secure our system. And it's not enough to just say what they are. So don't just say implementing a password policy. Give a brief explanation of why a password policy. With the C-suite, it's important to recognize that they may have some technical knowledge, but they're not necessarily at the same technical level as those of you who are going to be in this competition as engineers, researchers, technicians, etc. So have a good mix of technical to make sure that that you are presenting the issues and what you're going to do to fix them in an appropriate manner, but don't get so deep into the technical work that the C-suite doesn't understand what you're saying. So kind of keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that your funding is extremely limited or non-existent. So these 3 to 5 immediate actions need to be things, or should be, I should say, things that are either free or open source. So for immediate actions, you can't say something like, implement a $30,000 security program at my company, right? That's not practical for immediate actions when you have near no budget. The other thing that you're going to add is at least 2 potential long-term actions. And once again, reasoning for those. Some things to consider for that is like some potential things that you consider is training, potential staff and management changes that could increase or ensure resilience. So there are certain things that you could do long-term that are going to overall improve your company's security posture. Future assessments and monitoring actions, that's another good option. And then any additional tools or resources that you're going to need. This is the case where you can include things that are going to require some funding. However, as it states here, provide the justification for funding needs and try to be specific. Don't just say, we'll need money to do this. Be specific about what it is, how much money you need, and why you need that type of funding. So those are all things to consider there. Yeah, are there any questions at this time? I'll scroll back up to this so you can, oh, I should present the scenario. I apologize for that. So the gist of it is your team works for Innovo Electric. It is a hydropower energy plant type organization. So Innovo has recently acquired Modi, which is a small weather analysis company. So The scenario is that your team is provided access to Modi on the day of the competition and needs to integrate it into Anovo's network immediately. You're also going to be acquiring team members from Modi. So these are all things to keep in the back of your mind as you are working on this C-suite briefing. Couple things here. The video needs to be somewhere where it's accessible to the judges. So this could be Google Drive, YouTube, Vimeo, streamable. Be creative, but it needs to be available. Our preference is that you submit a YouTube link, but make it work however you can. Be sure to have some people other than you test the link. It's often that you'll be logged into an account that has permissions to where you store it. So have someone completely unaffiliated with your account or whatnot, test it out, make sure that it is accessible. What you'll do is submit the link in a text file for viewing to Scoreboard. And then we will begin viewing the videos November 9th. Late submissions are going to be accepted until November 11th at midnight Pacific time. And late submissions are going to lose 25% of the earned score. So from whatever you would have gotten anyway, you'll be docked 25% from there. One, did I miss anything from the rest of the scoring group? And two, do we have questions if I didn't miss anything?
Well, and Animesh, thanks for mentioning the deadlines. I forgot to mention that when I was talking about the security documentation. We're working with this, I believe the same timelines as well.
Yeah, I'm running up there right now.
Yeah, the 25% is to convince you to submit things on time. We recognize that things happen. We were all university students once too. But if you're 80% done, just turn it in at the due date. But if something came up and you didn't get anything started at all, then go ahead and take the penalty and get the document done. We're not expecting perfection in these documents. We're expecting you to have an opportunity to learn and think about how you communicate the details of what you've put together to senior management, to friends and family. Perhaps you'll use this in a portfolio as you present for a job interview.
Awesome. Any questions about the CISO briefing? Or
Animesh, can you go show them the rubric too?
Yes, absolutely. I was just about to ask whether or not I could do that or not.
Yeah, page 16 in that same document.
Awesome. 1 second, sorry. Working on it.
Yeah, while he's pulling that up, that rubric is what we will share with all the graders, the volunteers that are helping with this. These volunteers come from across the country. That's why, as he mentioned, your link needs to be accessible to, widely accessible. But as Amanda mentioned, it can be unlisted so that that people have to have a link in order to get to it. And the rubrics, we've tried to write them so that they're understandable and they give hints as to how we're going to score and what we're looking for. But what you're seeing here is exactly what we train the volunteers to.
All right, can you all see my screen again?
Yep.
Okay, so here's the rubric for the C-suite panel briefing. So I'm just gonna, Anne, would you just like me to walk through it?
Sure.
Okay, so it's broken up into 5 components, I believe, yeah, 5 components. So there's the summary of the assessment highlighting your plan. That's 25%. Then you'll have those recommended immediate actions. That's going to be 35%. You'll have 30% for your recommended long-term actions. 8% is going to go towards quality of your presentation. And then 2% will be towards the presentation time and the required elements. I apologize, I'm not sure what happened there. So to walk you through each one of those and what we're expecting. So with the summary of, with the summary assessment that highlights your plan, the 4, which is what we'd like you all to shoot for, is a summary, obviously, of the initial systems assessment and highlighting any steps or risks. This is going to need to be presented at a level for a non-technical audience, which means avoid your excessive detail. Highlight your risks of concern for a CEO. So there are going to be things that matter to you as a technician and as an engineer that the CEO may not necessarily care about. So be conscious of that. You know, I'm sure that as engineers, researchers, technicians, scientists, we would all love to go on for hours about how bad a buffer overflow vulnerability is. I know I would, but ask yourself if the CEO cares about the in-depth of a buffer overflow, or do they care about what the potential damage is from a buffer overflow? So think what are the risks and potential damages that are going to be caused, because that's what the C-suite is going to care about. On recommended immediate actions, once again, you need to have 3 to 5 priority actions to be taken right away. You need to have reasoning for the actions, or that the actions require, reasoning for why you want to take those actions, and then explain why they are going to need no or minimal additional funding. So this is where, again, you want to focus on trying free or open source tools. The recommended long-term actions, this is going to be a little long, so bear with me. This document, again, will be provided to you. These are going to be things that are appropriate for leadership action. Remember, these types of things, the immediate actions, these are things that you and your team are doing right now, and you're basically, this is more of a, you are telling your C-suite panel about, here's the things we've done. This is more of a negotiation type thing of, let me explain to you why we should do this, and you know, convince you, persuade you that we should be doing this right here. In fact, yeah, persuasive argument. So it's not just a, we're going to do these things. This is a, we think we should, or we know we should, and present it persuasively. Make sure that what you're asking for is clear and also reasonable. Again, if you ask for a $1.2 billion budget to do something, that's not reasonable. If you say we're going to need a lot of money to do this, that's not clear. So be clear in what you need and how much you need, but make sure it's reasonable. You're going to need 2 to 3 of these recommendations. At least 2, I believe, is what we had in the other document. And once again, some potential options here are things like training, future assessments and monitoring, additional tools that you might want to integrate into your ecosystem. So yeah, that's recommended long-term actions.
Well, and Animesh, if I can interrupt or inject.
Absolutely, please.
You've got more experience reviewing these videos. I
Sure.
suspect that there is no one right answer, and that's why the persuasion is important, is you explain the answer, your answer.
Exactly, yeah. So these things here are potential options that you have. However, we do encourage you to be creative. Don't necessarily feel like you need to pick something from these lists. What's important is that you present something and have a good persuasive argument for why, because it's possible that you are going to think of something that is the next $1 billion idea that no one has even thought of yet here, and be prepared to explain why that is. And that's why we're not giving you a list of, you know, or ourselves a list of, here are the 25 things that are potential options, because we want you to be creative, but we want that justification and that persuasion there to convince us of why you're right, or of why your option is good, I should say. The 8% is quality of presentation. This again comes back to the non-technical approach. Remember, you are presenting to a group of people who may not necessarily be technical. They are executives. Their job is to make the business money. That's their main goal. So keep that in mind. Their primary concern is keep the business running, keep the business profitable, and keep the reputation well. So take a non-technical approach. That does not mean that you can never talk about anything technical, but it means touch briefly on technical, but then again, come back to why this is meaningful to your C-suite. And that's where you need to dive into non-technical things. If it's going to be visible, your team needs to be dressed for a work environment and have a background that's not distracting. That means that we understand that many of you are at home and that the back wall of your bedroom or office may not necessarily be the most professional. Use a blurred background in that case. Make sure you're wearing, again, professional type clothes. Visual aid slides and other materials used have professional appearance. So that just means, if you're going to put together some sort of visual aid, put a little bit of effort into it. David a minute ago talked about using tools like draw.io, things like that. Put a little effort into it, make it look nice. That's kind of what you're shooting for here. And then lastly, presentation time and required elements. So again, required elements, registration ID number, that has to be there. If you don't have that there, we won't know whose video it is. It's important that you stayed within 5 to 7 minutes, and that you have 2 or more members participate, and there has to be clear acknowledgement of contributions made by any absent members. So anyone who's not included in your video, please acknowledge their contributions. That is partly just for our grading, but also partly give credit where credit is due. If your teammates contributed things, make sure that they are acknowledged for that. Yeah, I won't go through the rest of the rubric for the 1, 2, and 3 scores, just because we will run out of time quickly. But again, this document will be provided to you. You'll be able to look through this, shoot for that 4, be exemplary. I believe in you all.
And we expect you to be professional. However, there is no expectation that you go out and buy a suit so that you can dress up for this presentation.
Yes.
Work with what you have. There's no expectation that you go out and you buy Visio. We'd rather have you save your money for textbooks and write something out by hand. Pen and paper, scan that and turn it in. So work with what you have, but be as professional as you can. If you're in an environment, a crowded dorm room, and it doesn't get quiet, well, then maybe there'll be some background noise, and the judges will work around that. We know that not everyone gets to a quiet dorm room or lab or places like that to work in.
So a couple of things on both of these. Note that we have very many scorers. And if you want to help your scorers, you want to make it as easy for them to score as possible. So if you hide things in there, if you vary from a template, those sorts of things, it makes it hard for the scorer to look at the rubric and give you an accurate score, because they're having to look all over your documentation or rewind your video, and they're trying to get this done and give you as solid a score based on that rubric as possible.
Yes.
So really paying attention to that. Each part of the rubric, beyond the parts that are professionalism and just following rules, those are matched very purposefully against either a section of the template or a portion of the description of your task in the video. All right, so if you look, those are aligned, and just making sure that those are done and they're done to the best of your ability will earn you the best score possible.
Yes, to Anne's note there, one thing that you can do then to give yourself the highest possible points is right at the beginning of the presentation, state the ID number. Don't make the scorers have to search through your thing and potentially miss it. We would hate for you to miss points on something that you did, but we're also human. And if it's buried 45 seconds into the presentation very briefly, we could miss it, and we'd hate for that to happen. So do yourselves a favor by doing us a favor.
Exactly. When I talk with my colleagues about writing, I always tell them, don't make the reader work any harder than they have to. This isn't a homework assignment to the volunteers to figure out how to grade your paper. This is you explaining, and using the rubric and, as it was intended to get all the points that you can.
All right, other questions? We've had a few in the chat, but you can also unmute and just say your question out loud if you prefer.
So I think a couple of things to re-emphasize, just to I know I said it yesterday for some of them, but I'll emphasize it again, is on your video, don't wear your university apparel. I think it's been stated, but I'll re-emphasize it. Don't have your university flag. Okay, can't see my hand, but your university flag right behind you. Don't stand in front of your university and have, this really elaborate video that we can see, you're from University of Argonne. Be mindful, we're trying to make it as unbiased as possible. So removing some of that really does help. That's why we suggested doing something like this with, okay, my background says CyberForce. So, having, even just a blurred background on everyone, or a generic steal general Zoom background for everyone, totally works. Make your own, make your Innovo background for everyone, have fun with it, but not your university. And same goes with security documentation. Someone asked if you can manipulate that template. There's really no need to manipulate it, because we really just only want your team number on the front of that cover page, because that's really all we care about. At the end of the day, is we just want to know what team's submitting it. And that's really, at the end of the day, that, and then filling the rest of it out.
And then we had one question about scope. I put a quick answer into the chat. Everything that we've provided you is within scope. So we've given you company names. Don't make up new company names. Use those company names. That will convince us that you've read the documentation. We've given you the rubric so that you can write to that rubric. Now, if it says provide, 3 examples, then bleed in, these are the 3 recommendations. The volunteers should be able to count up to 3, but you can tell them 3 just in case if you have doubts as to whether it's the end of the day and they've forgotten how many fingers they have on each hand. For the vulnerabilities, what?
It's a common problem.
Yeah, the later it gets, the harder it gets. So again, just make it easy for the volunteers to grade your paper or your video by telling us what we need to know up front.
And Amish, a question came in yesterday, and I'll let you reemphasize it. What are the point deductions or thoughts on a 15-minute video versus a 5 to 7 minute video?
Like, I guess, are you asking for specifically how many points would be deducted?
No, just that was a question that came in yesterday on the rules Fireside chat. They said, well, what if we wanted to submit a 15-minute video versus a 5 to 7 minute video?
Sure. Yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen real quick, and that will hopefully clear that up. So looking at the rubric here, so between 1 and 4, right? 4 was that we stayed within the 5 to 7. A 3 is that the length is too long or too short for the amount of information that was expected to be shared. At a 2, we're looking at longer or much shorter. And then at a 1, we have much shorter or much longer. So I'd say probably 15 puts us towards the much shorter or much longer. So without wanting to give you a straight up answer, because I don't have one. If you hit all the other points in presentation time and required elements, you'd find yourself probably somewhere between a 1 and a 2 for a 15-minute presentation. Also, you will probably just really annoy your grader, but we will stay impartial for the sake of scoring.
And this, I'll go on and add, the scope here is you're presenting to the C-suite. So if you were scheduled to speak to the dean of your college and they told you you had 5 to 10 minutes and you spoke for half an hour, that's probably the last time you'll get to talk to the dean.
Yes.
And I've been in some competitions where you hit the 5-minute mark, the sirens go off, you are cut off and you can't say a thing after that.
Mhm.
You're going to have more grace period here. But again, this is the focus on how there's a lot of value in saying, I've got a limited amount of time. What's the most important thing for me to say? And how do I fit it in with into the 5 minutes that I have? Because we could talk about, the setup for 2 hours because we're technical folks and we like that kind of stuff. But the C-suite wants a short, concise answer. And so, they have determined that in 5 to 7 minutes, you can give them an adequate answer. So hit that mark.
You are taking hours of work and giving them a too long didn't read. You are literally giving them an executive summary in words. The C-suite sometimes has the attention span of a gnat. Go much more than 5 minutes, you're going to lose them. You're not going to get what you need as far as security equipment. You're not going to get the budget. You're not going to get the staff. You have to keep a hold of them. Otherwise, it's all gone.
And the same thing goes in the documentation where it says that there's a summary. You want to stick to that summary, stick to the word guidelines. This is a critical skill to develop for work, that you will be asked to give a high level. They'll talk about, so many feet, 10,000 feet, 100,000 feet, mile high. What level are you giving sorts of details? And if you look at the other parts of the rubric, you will see that there's parts where it says you're getting overly technical, you're going into too much detail, and that's going to score you lower than if you can be concise and really hit the mark with something that's at the right level for your C-suite or for somebody who may be reading your documentation for an overview and then letting someone else dig into the technical aspects that are there in the sections that are called for. And there is not a template for the PowerPoint. You may select your own PowerPoint template. And you don't have to use PowerPoint if you don't want to. So that choice is yours. You can use PowerPoint. You can simply all get up there and present on your video. You can use a combination. If you're using PowerPoint and nobody is comfortable showing their faces, you can just talk in the background. That's okay.
Just like on the internet, too long didn't read. I mean, I will read, but the C-suite, not so much.
I encourage you to really take the time over the next couple of days and dig into those rules and expectations. Highlight, just like you would for if you're getting ready for a test, right? Highlight the parts that are really critical, mark up the